sending a paper to a journal just to publish an article and have it on your CV. That's one purpose of research. Research to actually create knowledge that people really need, right? That new knowledge, right? That advances. That advances our understanding of some areas of life, and then research for the purpose of trying to help the process of development. So what we're going to do now is to focus on the ones that are about development, not just research just to put one paper in a journal somewhere that nobody reads, or we're just doing our thing, right? We don't really care about what happens in society. So we're not looking at those ones. We're looking at research that is focused on trying to help improve the world, the way the world is, trying to help the understand what is wrong with current ways of doing things. How can we? What kind of improvements would make much? Will help us to make quicker progress, and what do we need to know that we didn't know before? Because knowledge is important in terms of helping to shape how we try to solve problems. If a society doesn't have research, or the research is simply not looking at economy and society just like we're doing our own thing, we will not make much. We will not make serious progress. We'll just be there. You see universities that are there. You say they are there. They are just doing their thing. They don't care about what happens around them. They're just doing their thing. So that people just want to write papers and become professors, and that's all. And then you have the university there that's just on its own. Society is on its own. There is no linkage. The knowledge being created is not influencing what happens in society. Therefore, government also doesn't even regard the university community. They don't even think they exist. And the professor keep complaining that the government doesn't listen to us, and government says they don't have nothing to offer. That's the bad equilibrium we are in right now in Nigeria. So, but we're not talking about that kind of research. We are talking about research that's for development. So, there's something called research protocol. Those in the medical sciences, they know something about protocol. Protocol is what we call the some people call it standard operating procedure, SOP. That's protocol. We refer to protocol as SOP. So now, first of all, so what is research? So a research is a planned investigation. A planned investigation that uses scientific methodology to solve an important problem and generate new knowledge. And you want to solve a problem, and as you generate new knowledge that can help us understand how we solve that problem. Research also involves testing of hypotheses, generating answers to existing questions, understanding the nature of a problem, finding solutions to known problems. Okay? Now, to be termed as research, an investigation must have a logical procedure. That's one. A reliable measurement. That's two. I must reach an unbiased conclusion. So, if you say you've done research, but you look at the procedure, it's not logical, right? You can't see that it's logical. We just want, and once you fault the procedure of an investigation, that investigation is meaningless, it's useless, because the procedure is flawed. Or number two, when you don't have a reliable way of measuring the outcome, or measuring what are purporting to measure, you don't have something that's a reliable way of measuring it, or is spurious, or is not. It's not something consistent. You are not consistent in your measurement, or it's kind of a flawed measurement system. we don't regard that as good research. Those ones are just things that are just like trash. And then in the third one, when you talk about the conclusion, your conclusion from the research must not be biased, right? We're not looking for opinion. We're not looking for your opinion. Research is not just, it's not opinion. Polling, eh? There are opinion polling in different places. So do some opinion polling. So what's your opinion about this? What's your opinion about that? Then you summarize it. 50% of the population says this. They say that they don't like the current government. They say that inflation is their most important problem, right? They say that fuel is the most important crisis we face in the country. Those are polls, opinion polls, right? And what do they say? So a lot of people do polls, right? But in terms of research, the difference between a research and an opinion poll is this. If you want to see, you've done a research and you want to disseminate it. If people say that, if you find that in a sample, that majority of people say that having that petrol price is our most important problem, you want to ask the question: who are these people? What distinguishes them from other people, right? Which means that you have to go into their background. You want to see what are the predictors of this ranking, right? For example, they've ranked their concern, and they say fuel cost is their major economic challenge. Now, who are these people, and how are they different from other people in the population who ranked other issues as top in their priorities? What is it that can predict somebody? What characteristics sort people into those saying it is fuel and those saying it's not fuel? You want to look into the data. You want to look into the dynamics in the data to be able to understand exactly who is saying that. What are the characteristics? Where are they coming from? What are their experiences? If you don't have data to do all that, they're just coming to post. That's not research, because it doesn't. I mean, it's just a common thing. Anybody with an opinion can say the same thing, but that's not really useful in terms of if you want to design, let's say, interventions. You cannot intervene in everybody's life. So you want to be able to say, who are these people that this thing is actually the priority for them? You want to look at their characteristics, geographical characteristics, demographic characteristics, economic characteristics, and social characteristics, and all that, so that you can design an appropriate intervention, something targeted to address the issue. So I just use an example to say, if you want to say you are doing research, you want to produce research. A research is an investigation. Number two, the issue of scientific methodology. It's an investigation that uses scientific methodology, okay? It involves testing a hypothesis. It involves generating answers, helping us to understand the problem and finding solutions to problems. But again, to become the research, that investigation must have a logical procedure. You have to check. Reliable measurement. You have to check. And the conclusion must be unbiased, right? Okay, those statistics know about unbiased stuff, okay? Now, why research? As I've said, you can do research to create knowledge. You can do research to revise or extend knowledge. You can do research to test the validity of a claim or a statement. Now, whichever is the case, research creates knowledge for decision making and problem solving. That's kind of research we are focused on here. Research that creates knowledge for decision making and for problem solving. Now, I just bring a set of statements that I've heard around that people have made that really speaks to the essence of research. Number one, what you don't know is bigger than you, of course. And anyhow you think about it, what you don't know What you don't know is bigger than you. Definitely. It was this woman in a movie called Sabrina Makosa that, that said that several times. She was also saying that, and it made a lot of sense, that what you don't know is bigger than you, basically. What you don't know can get you stuck, can get you lost, can impede your progress, can keep you where you are because you don't know it. Information that you don't know, knowledge you don't have, can keep you underperforming, can keep you stuck, can keep you at a level that is so far, is so far below your potentials, right? Because you don't know something, some things you don't know. Number two, it is a rare common sense that what you don't understand, you can't fix. But I can tell you that common sense is not common in Nigeria, basically, because there is the effort to understand the problem is very, very limited, very, very shallow. But effort to fix problem is gargantuan, right? So it's so huge to fix a problem. But effort to understand the problem is very, very, very narrow, very, very little. People are doing to understand the problem, but they want to fix it. So you talk about policies, right? Okay, whether it's a population policy, education policy, just look at our policies, right? The way they are written. They see something on the surface because all of us are just thinking like macroeconomists, right? Who just look at broad aggregates and based on these broad things, so want to design a policy to address it, to change it. Whereas the factors factors summing up to that phenomenon, you are not checking them properly. You don't want to understand what is going on there, but you want to address this aggregate level thing. It's a joke. It's a joke. We try to fix things that we don't understand. That's the common sense in Nigeria that I've seen. People sit down, they start talking, how you can fix it, but they don't understand. If you ask them, if you take them down to see whether they understand the problem, they will tell you that you're asking them too many questions. I've been in that situation before. Somebody told me that we have gone past trying to understand all these things. We know the issues. Okay, what are the issues? We know the issues. And blah, blah, blah. We know the issues. We don't have to go back to research. We just need to find ways to address these issues. That's what a lot of Nigerians think. Just fix it. But what's the problem? We don't know. In fact, I just find young people these days, for example, in this new era, political era, a lot of young people, they don't know what the problem is. Coming out of school, they don't know what the challenges in the society. They just know things are not working well, but they don't know exactly the reason why it's not working well. They just blame everybody that's there. They just get out. They just want everybody out. We want another person to come and do it. They tell you what really is the problem? what? So can you drill down on the problem so that you understand it? A lot of people don't have that patience. Our young people, they don't have that patience to start to understand the problem. They just see that some things are not working well. They don't like people, and everybody's suffering. The country is not being run well. Everybody has to go. People have to leave the place. And then bring people in. You bring people in that don't understand they have the same problem. They don't understand the problem. You just bring them in and let them come and try to address it. Now when they get there, they now start trying to understand the problem. Before you know it, time is gone, right? Sometimes Nigerian policymakers go to development partners and they basically ask them, can you help us study our problem? And then advise us on how we can fix it. That's what Nigerian policymakers do. When they go to talk to people from ILO, from World Bank, from IMF, that's exactly their language, which is senseless. One president IBB, maybe a lot of us know him. At some point, he came up with a statement because he was just frustrated about Nigerian economy. The Nigerian economy has defied every logic, which is just impossible. Which is just impossible that an economy can defy every logic. The fact is that it is either that they don't understand what they're trying to fix, or they're just applying the wrong logic to the problem. So that's the situation we find ourselves in. Yeah, that people have a retinue of solutions to problems that they don't understand. So this is what we have been as a country. This is a major problem, that we don't understand the challenges we have. We don't understand them. People, those who have some little understanding, they're just partial understanding, very partial. Not like kind of a general equilibrium understanding, right, of of the problem, just some partial thing from their own perspective, from their own, but to come together to actually have a sort of a concerted, right, understanding of what the problem is. We don't have that kind of a way of thinking. Everybody just wants to stop their own and just run and just run with it. Okay, so so research is key. Research is very important. We need to discover things. We need to solve our problems. In this case, we're still struggling with how we're going to pay for healthcare for everybody. We don't have the answer. There are some countries have found their way. They've made their decision about where to go. But we want to do everything, and when you're doing everything, it means you are doing nothing. And so you're doing everything, but there'll be no progress because you're not doing anything by doing everything. So there are many areas where we have to understand exactly through research actually give us insight into how we address those issues. How to make sure we have clean water, how to make sure that we can avert any communal crisis before, all the time, rather than just doing post crisis committee go and do a report. What can we do pre crisis, right? What can we manage it that way? But the thinking is just absent. Now, so the most important thing about research, okay, the crucial thing, it's not your question, it's not your results. Your question, fine, your result, but it's your methodology, your approach and methodology. I know a lot of us we hear about methodology, but we don't. About approach, the issue of approach is less talked about. When you talk about approach, right? Before you go into the methodology, you have to give us an overall description or overall idea of how that research will be conducted or implemented, without getting into the specific technical details of the process. That is, how do you want to do this? Okay, this is how I want to do this, without bogging me down into the specific step by step methodology. No, just give me the approach. What's the approach? If I like the approach, I will tell you I like it. If I don't like it, I'll tell you that this doesn't make sense. Okay, so the approach is, this is how you want to do it. Now, a methodology is a comprehensive description of a coherent set of methods, techniques, tools, and procedures that will be employed to achieve the proposed objectives of the research. Not just that, you have to justify each of these components. Why is this method the appropriate one? Why is this technique the appropriate one? Why is this tool the appropriate one? Why is this procedure the appropriate one? Okay, you have to justify each of them that these are the appropriate things, right? And the reason why, sometimes in justifying your approach, your methodology, you make people to actually understand the problem you're trying to solve and why it is different from other problems that sound or look similar. Okay, so a methodology is scientific in nature, and it is implemented in a series of steps. Now, when you say an approach is how you want to do it, a methodology can be said to be, this is what you want to do, and this is what you will use to do it. I hope it's clear. The approach is the how. This is how I want to do it. The methodology is the what I want to do and what I'm going to use to do it. That is the method, the techniques, the tools, the procedures. That's what I want to do in time to address the research question. All right? This is what I will do. You've described how you want to do it. Now you're breaking down the details of the what you want to do and what I'm going to use to do the thing. Okay? I hope this distinction is clear. So in every research, there is approach and there is methodology. Although I know that a lot of people when you're doing your undergraduate project, you hardly hear about the approach. But in the development community, your approach is very important. Yeah, you have to declare your approach first before you talk about your methods, right? So that people know exactly what you're trying to do, because your approach will guide you into your methodology. Now, in the development work, your methodology, the step-by-step enumeration of your methodology is the most important part of the work. You will see, by the time we get to budget, you will see that your budget must reflect your methodology. If there is no congruence between your budget and methodology, that proposal has failed. In fact, anybody who is evaluating your proposal will look at your methodology, read everything, I'm going to look at your budget and tell you that these things don't speak to themselves, because your budget cannot be different from what it will take you to implement the methodology. Okay? Your budget must not be different. It must not, how will I say, your budget has to reflect everything you said you want to do in the methodology. They must speak to themselves. If they don't, that proposal has failed. I'm almost sure that if it gets to the young people, or people that understand methodology, they will not buy that kind of idea. They will not go with that person that has proposed that. So just bear in mind. So when you are doing undergraduate thesis, undergraduate project, you didn't have to talk about budget in it. But this one, if you are doing a proposal, writing a research proposal, research grant, your methodology, you have to make sure you describe everything clearly, because when you get to the budget, every element of the methodology will show up in the budget, and how much it's going to cost to implement each of the stages, the resources required, the numbers, the quantities and the prices, everything. You have to be able to list everything out in a proposal, in a research proposal. Okay. Now, we talk about a research protocol. Some people call it a proposal. Some people call it a protocol. But in essence, the protocol is a detailed plan. It's a detailed plan of how you will conduct that research. Now, it will inform you on what will be done, why it has to be done, and how it will be done, the approach. It will clarify ideas and direct focus to all aspects of the investigation. It will guide the research, especially if there are multiple investigators, right? For example, there are 5 of us working on a project, right? And each of us are working on different areas. If you don't have a protocol, some people can go astray in terms of what they're supposed to do. But the protocol, all of us have the protocol in front of us. All of us are looking at it. Everybody's looking at the protocol and then doing their own part of it to fit into the overall design, investigation. It's necessary for institutional ethical approval. The research that people are doing at the undergraduate level, a lot of them maybe a lot of us are not, except those in the medical sciences and health, schools of health and medical sciences. People don't really know much about ethical approval. Anytime you are doing a research that involves human subjects, you want to interview people, right? You want to collect data on people, you must submit your research protocol to what we call the ethics board, research ethics board, for approval. Because if you are just going to collect data from the shelf, for instance, please, Jaffa, let me know if somebody is raising hand to ask a question, please. But I can't see that side now. Okay? Yeah. Huh? Yeah. Right now, are you on research protocol? Are you on research protocol? Which slide are you seeing? Which slide are you seeing? Only the first? Whoa. You could have told me. Sorry. What's going on? You're only here?
Yeah, same way, yeah.
What about now?
Yeah, we can see clearly now.
Page 2.
And this one?
Page 3, yes.
Okay. What about this research approach and methodology?
Yeah, we can see.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know that. Sorry.
Please, and we would like to have the material after the class so that
No
we can
problem.
go through it.
No problem. So I'm on this page now. Research protocol. Okay. Next time, if the page is not moving, please, Paul, inform me quickly. All right. Okay. So, so a research protocol is necessary for institutional ethical approvals. Anybody who is doing any study that requires to interact with human beings or animals, right, must obtain an ethical approval from respective research ethics authority. It is necessary if you are writing a grant application. It's very important to get that approval. Without that approval, you cannot implement any such grant. Okay. Now, the structure of protocol may vary by discipline or by the person that is to fund the research. Okay. All right. So, a good research protocol should do the following. It should answer the study questions. It should achieve the study objectives. It should be feasible, implementable. It should be easy to replicate. Okay, that is, the information you provided in the protocol should be enough to permit another person to replicate that study. Then, convincingly, it must show the importance of the research. It must show the research process and also the competence of the investigators. If any of this is missing in the protocol, those who are applying to fund your research, they just put it aside. Okay. Okay. So that's that. Now let's talk about the elements of a research protocol. The title of the project of the research. You have to provide a summary or abstract. You have to describe a project description, how you will disseminate the results, how you publish the results, what are the ethical considerations, your timetable, the problems you anticipate, and how you want to address them, the budget, the references, right? References that you've cited in the course of writing the protocol. Then the research team, who are going to be in the team. Then some other things you put in the annex. Okay, let's go down one by one. In the description, first thing is that you must have an identified problem. Okay, identified problem. And then you also have to justify why that problem is worth investigating. A research is an investigation. You must have a problem identification, and you must have a justification or rationale for trying to understand that problem or trying to solve that problem. Otherwise, for instance, there was one day somebody came up with a proposal studying something, relationship between so and so, And then somebody in the audience asked a question. How many people are affected by this problem you're trying to investigate? What fraction of the population is affected by this? Maybe about 2% of the population. 2%. So, so this is a problem that affects almost no one. So why is this important? Why is this the question you find important? When there are many problems around, right? So that's part of justification. You have to be able to tell us exactly why that problem is relevant, why that question is relevant. I know that in your research project in schools, that wasn't important too. Because you have to do a project for you to graduate. And you're not applying for grant from anywhere, right? Most of them they're just funding with your own money. But research for development, mostly somebody else has to pay for it. And in that case, you must have a problem that you've identified. You must have convincing reason why it is important to address that problem. Then the next one is literature review. What are the goals and objectives of this study? Then what are your research questions and hypotheses? Then study design. Then methodology, approach and methodology. What are your expected outcomes? This, in terms of description, you have to describe the problem this way. Okay? Let's look at research problem identification. So I'm starting with each of them now, all these 8. 1, research problem identification explains the research problem. Now, in this section, you should answer the following questions in a logical flow. What's the problem? What's the magnitude or significance of the problem? That is, who is affected? Right? How significant is this problem? The frequency or occurrence of this problem. Is it of public interest? For example, somebody just studying is coming up with a proposal that the public is not interested in it. It's a waste of time. Now, the problem, the causes of it, are they known? Is there a consensus on the causes of the problem, or are there controversies around it? Okay, then you have to address solvability of the problem. Can the problem be solved? Can it be solved? What has been done? What are the effects? Now, you also need to address the problem. You have to address the need for a research to address this problem. Is there a knowledge gap that exists in that this research is to fill up? That is, for you to say that you have a problem you have identified, right? You have to be able to do this to convince the person, the reader, that this is what the why, this is what the effort. You have to tell us what's the problem in very clear ways. You understand it. So what's the magnitude of the problem? Is it a problem that just affects 1%, or just like that's very rare? Something that's very rare you want to study. Well, if it's very rare, we can put it in the back of the burner and can attend to other things that are more pressing, that are more prevalent than that. So, is it of public interest? What's causing it? Is there a consensus? Are there controversies around it? And then this problem I'm trying to investigate, is it something that can be solved? Right? Okay, if it's something that can be solved, what has been done and what are the effects of what have been done so far? Then you need to address the problem. Why is it important why is it important for you to do research in order to address this problem? Is there a knowledge gap you're trying to fill, or what? So I know that in school research undergraduate, you don't have to do all this stress. Maybe just a few of them, fine, but you have to go through all this stress. But now, if you want to do research for development, you have to understand all these things clearly. You have to be able to state them clearly. So it takes a lot. It takes a lot to be able to do solid research in this development space. Okay? Number 2, the rationale. That's your argument of why this research should be done. Why Why should you do it? Okay? So this you answer the following questions. Country needs. Does it fit into current local or national priorities? How does it fit? All right? What knowledge or information will it provide? What new knowledge do you want to generate? Then, in terms of contribution of the results, what's the relevance of the knowledge? What are the benefits? How does it help us to improve understanding the problem? What are the gaps, controversies that you are trying to that be addressed? Or so can this influence policy? Does it have any policy thinking in it? And now, how will the result be applied and who will benefit from it? Okay, that's a justification. So that section of a justification, unlike when you just write two lines or three lines, rationale justification. In this one, you have to make the case why that the research is important. Okay? Then literature review. Let me come to this one now. You never put the literature review without understanding what literature review is actually about. Some people just think that it is going to dig as many papers as they can find and writing what they've said. This one said this one opines this one argues this one did this one did that. You do literature review because you want to provide a justification for this new research by identifying gaps and weaknesses in the existing literature. Okay? So how does your work, how does it interact with existing knowledge? What gap does it close? You have to show that gap that it closes. There are some research, some studies that can address 5 different areas of literature. You have to be able to see them clearly, be able to say this addresses this strand of literature, that strand of literature, that strand of literature, that strand of literature. I mean knowledge areas. So this research addresses this, addresses that, and addresses that. Now, so it puts the research problem in perspective. Okay. It should include current and relevant literature, should be thorough, logical, and well organized. It should focus on original research and systematic reviews. Should include literature that supports and disproves the researcher's point of view. Not only the things that support your view, but also things that disprove, that says contrary to the researcher's point of view. But finally, the review should justify this research you're trying to do by identifying the gaps and weaknesses in the existing literature. And then again, the way, okay, when we get to organizing literature review, so what some people do is that when you see a chapter called literature review, it's just like it's like a dumpster, a dumping ground. They take a paper, they copy what's in the paper, they paste it. Ajibala and Anaga and Kekere Eku and Ajibala said so, full stop. Professor Eyeli and Ega found they said so, full stop. Move to the next person and say this one, Atiuro and Eyeli says so, full stop. Move to the next person. That's only literature review. That's a scrap sheet for literature review, right? It's like a dumpster. It's like a dumpster for literature review, like a scrap sheet for literature review. A literature review is a synthesis. Synthesis. It's a synthesis of the evidence that already exists in that subject area. It's not a dumpster of what every paper said, what everybody wrote, one by one, so that you have a long chapter called literature review. And this one said this. One author, you have about a paragraph to that author, another author a paragraph, another a paragraph, another a paragraph. That's what some people think literature review, but that's just a dumpster. A literature review, when you see properly done literature review, what they will have, all those ones, all these one person said, they will have put everything in Excel somewhere. Those are things that should be in an Excel, should be in the documents, in the like in the dumpster, right? In the dumpster. From that dumpster, you will have synthesized all the evidence where they fall into. Those who are the original papers, those who are the follow-up, those who have gone in a certain direction in terms of the evidence, those who went in a certain direction in terms of the evidence, and so on and so forth. Now, literature review is about the evidence that exists in literature, not opinions, basically. Some people just want to write opinions. I mean, I'm talking about things that, I'm talking about literature, this thing for development too. It's not about opinion you're writing, no opinion. Some people write opinions. That's what we're talking about. They're talking about evidence that exists already, what people have found, right? What people have found, all the research, all the papers, you have synthesized all of them. You have put them in different camps. A literature review may not exceed 2 pages or 3 pages, but it conveys the knowledge that exists in that field. It's much better than a 10-page literature review that is just one author said this, one author said this, one author said this, one author said that. Okay? All right. Now, because that issue of one author said this, because you have the idea that how long your literature review is how good, how you think that paper is. It's a joke, it's a lie. That if it's for the professor in university, yeah, maybe fine. But in the development world, no way. Who's going to read all that? Who's going to read a 10-page literature review that's not synthesized? Just one author said this, a whole paragraph. One author said this, a whole paragraph. One author said this, a whole paragraph. Who has time for that? It's a synthesis of the evidence that that you are bringing, right? You have synthesized them. In fact, sometimes if you synthesize the literature, there's a trend, or there's a strand, and there's a strand so that many authors have. There are many authors, many papers that are on that lane. When you describe the lane, you just cite the authors that are on that lane. There's another lane. You cite the authors on that lane. You have another lane. Because you have done the thorough literature review, you have done the dumpster. You start with the dumpster, and you have reorganized, and you have synthesized the dumpster very well before you start writing. So writing, some people, it is when they are doing literature review that start doing the literature search. They start looking for papers on the web. Start looking for papers on the web, and then just copying them and put them in the paper. No, that's not literature review. Maybe in the schools, that's what it is. But in development work, who wants to read what each person says? Want to see the knowledge? Want to see what is there, the arguments, what people have found, direction of the evidence that exists, the controversies. That's what we want to see. Or the conflicting findings, and why they're conflicting, maybe from your perspective, or maybe some other people that have found why those perspectives are different. That's what we want to see in the literature review. It's not the list of what every author says, one by one. No, not here. Maybe in the university, in the schools, maybe, but not here. Okay? In development world, that doesn't work. Okay. Study goals and objectives. So the goal is probably what research proposal will do. So an ideal study goal should be clear. State the purpose of the study, that is what it aims to achieve and why. Number 2, should define what will be described, determined, identified, compared, and where the hypothesis, it should indicate what to be confirmed, the hypothesis. Now, specific study objectives. Number 1, statement of the research question should be formulated, before studying the research, indicate how study will be accomplished its goals. Introduce study design should be simple, concise, and specific. That's the objective. As time goes on, we want to show you some examples of studies that do this very well. Now, research question or hypothesis. A good research question should be simple, should be clear, should be unambiguous, should be focused, should be realistic, should be answerable. It should be logical. If there are more than one questions, and then they should be expressed as a question. Expressed as a question. That's because it's a research question. Research hypotheses are mainly used in analytical studies. Okay? And when you talk about an hypothesis, it's the declaration of the relation between two or more variables, maybe one being dependent on the other one. Tentatively, so the hypothesis tentatively predicts the research outcome. Tentatively. Because when you want to write an hypothesis, you have to write the non-hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. The non-hypothesis might say that there's a relationship between so and so, or this one affects that, or this no difference between this and this hypothesis. It's a tentative relationship which you want to test. Okay, and it should clearly state the variables that may be likely to be associated and the population of interest. You have to state all that in the hypothesis. Now, how is it expressed? The non-hypothesis, which means there is no association between the variables of interest. Then the alternative hypothesis, there's an association between the variables of interest. But mostly in development type work, all these hypotheses, you don't really have to bother about all these hypothesis thing. But the research question should be very clear, unambiguous, and it will be very clear to what you are trying to say, what you're trying to do. Okay? So in the development literature, all these hypotheses, non-alternative hypotheses, we don't usually have not in a lot of places, because let's say you're doing laboratory tests, right? You're doing laboratory tests. You start doing all that. You're measuring this, measuring that. You're examining them against themselves, and so on and so forth. Yeah, cool. But in more of social science related development work, you don't really go into all that. But the questions must be very clear, must be well stated. Okay. So study design. Study design determines the credibility of the study. If you do a study and you get audience together, you are disseminating it. And a lot of people are there from different backgrounds. Politicians are there. Academicians are there. You know, politicians are the people you need to convince most. They are the most cynical about anything, because oftentimes their goal, their objective in that position is how they're going to win the next election, how they're going to raise money. So they are thinking about money. You call them to meet, they are thinking about money. So they are not even interested in what they have to say most of the time. But what I've seen about politicians is this: once they see that your design is credible, a lot of them are smart too. Once they see that your design is credible, if they can feel it as credible, and the results make sense, you've won them. You've got their attention. Okay? You've got their attention. They will ask you, so what should we do to address this thing that you have brought up? So your study design, for those who are going to even read it, for the technical community also, for development community, academics are there, practitioners are there. Your study design determines whether people will believe your study or not, very, very critically. It's not the question, it's not the result. The design of the study, whether it's appropriate or not. So you have to describe the design, you have to justify it. Now, your choice of study design depends on the research question or the hypothesis, the utility of that design in comparison with alternative study designs, the utility of it, then the feasibility of it, the feasibility, resource availability, timeline, and ethical consideration. There are some designs that you cannot implement, right, because of the ethics behind it. Is somebody raising hand?
Yes, sir. We can't see your screen. Okay, you can see.
Again? Okay. You can see my screen now. Okay, right now.
Yes, you can see it.
You are seeing study design?
Yes.
Yes.
Japa? Okay, thank you. All right. Okay. So, your study design determines the credibility of the study. Okay? Now, your choice of design depends on your question, right? Depends on the utility of that design compared with others with alternative study designs. Then the feasibility, the resource availability, the timeline you have, and the ethics, the ethical consideration, right? There are some study designs that may be fantastic, but when you look at the situation, you're trying to the setting where you're trying to do the investigation, you cannot implement it. For instance, some people try to do some impact evaluation, right? Impact evaluation research. So they want to see the effect of transfers, right? Of giving money to some people, so to say, okay, there is poverty. We want to have an experiment. So we want to, in such a way that we'll give the treatment to some people, we'll not give to some other people. There are settings where you cannot do that ethically. It's not permitted. You cannot come into the society and do that in that setting. You cannot do it. Are we together? In some other settings you can. But ethically, there are some designs that you will not be permitted to implement. Even though scientifically they may be great, but ethically they will not be permitted. There are cases like that. In fact, if you look at the impact evaluation group landscape, right? They have a lot of that, a lot of those things. There are some superb designs, but they cannot implement them because of ethical considerations. They will not be approved by the ethics committee. Some of them, they will say some of them are not moral. That you cannot do this. Okay? Now, then the types of design, there are qualitative or quantitative designs. A design can also be observational or interventional. Okay, so when I say qualitative or quantitative, you can have a design that are suitable to qualitative research. You have designs that are suitable for quantitative research. Some designs are observational and some are interventional. For example, if you want to do impact evaluation, it's an interventional study design. But if you want to use a cross-sectional data from somewhere to do some research, that's observational, right? Okay. Now, and also, suppose you want to go and stand somewhere on the bridge and start recording all the cars that are passing, right? Their colors or something like that. That one is observational, right? Those are observational things. But when you want to intervene, right? When you want to, you have to interact with agents. You have to interact with people. You have to do some intervention. That's a different kind of research. Impact evaluation research and so on and so forth, they follow that side. Observational is just like you want to go and observe something, or you want to use data that already exists and so on and so forth. Right. So then a design can also be descriptive or analytic. When you say descriptive, you know what that means? It could be also analytic. In descriptive thing, you just want to talk about, just describe the features, just do simple statistics, simple summaries, right? Crosstabs, tabulations, graphs, charts, and so on and so forth. That's descriptive. But analytics designs are not, they're not that simple. You have to do a lot. Okay? Then a design can be cross-sectional or longitudinal. When you say cross-sectional, that is, you are observing a lot of units. Your observation is across units at a given point in time. Across units at a given point in time. But longitudinal across time of given units. Now, you're observing some units over time. Okay? In cross-sectional research, you're observing units, right? You're observing across units at a point in time. Okay? You're observing something across units at a point in time. But longitudinal, you're observing specific units over a period of time. Longitudinal, that is over a period of time. So there's a difference between them that way. So some study designs can be cross-sectional, some can be longitudinal. Okay. Methodology now. Okay. Details, justifications of the techniques and procedures and tools that will be employed to achieve the proposed objectives. Yes. Somebody is raising hand or nobody? Okay. 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 All right, let me go back to it. Okay. I mean, number 7 now. I hope you can see my screen. Number 7. So, research methodology. In the methodology, you provide variables, study population and research setting, sampling method, selection procedures, sample size, right? The cases, the treatment cases, the control cases, inclusion and exclusion criteria, and if you want to discontinue some samples, the criteria for discontinuation. If you need to do some interventions, what are the proposed interventions, if any? What is it? Intervention will be? Who will administer it? Where? What's the extent of intervention? How often will you do it? How will subject be allocated? How will subject? All procedures for data collection, like instruments, pilot testing, recruitment of study participants, that software you're going to use, the statistical method you will use to analyze, sample size justification, study power, significance level, all of that. You have to provide them, okay, in your methodology. Okay. So a lot is required here. Okay. At some point we'll show you examples of some of this, right? That has been done. Sometimes economic considerations can limit your ability to scientifically do all this, but you always have to put in your best to make sure you do all this all the time. Okay. Expected outcomes of the study. I'm on number 8 now. You should answer the following questions. What new evidence are you going to obtain from the study? How will the evidence contribute to improvement in knowledge? Who will benefit from using the findings? And will it have any effect on services or systems or policies? The expected outcomes. You have to answer all these questions in terms of the outcomes. You can't just say, the outcome will be, this is the outcome we expect, right? Without all these justifications. Somebody is, okay, Paul. You're seeing 7, inside or 8? It's back, eh? You're seeing 8 now. Okay. Okay, so expected outcomes of the study. Okay, no one. Okay. All right. So, the new evidence. What new evidence is going to come out of it? How will it be used to contribute to improvement in knowledge? Who is going to benefit from using the findings? And is there any effect on services or systems or policies? Once you are answering these questions, you will see that people that are interested in development will be taking interest in it. Once they know that, oh, this is something that is important to us. What they want to do in this study is important to us. So that draws their attention to it. Okay, let me go to 9. Dissemination and publication. Can you see, is my screen moving? To dissemination and
Yeah,
publication?
yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Under dissemination and publication, this are another thing. No? You can't just say, I want to do research, right? And I want to put it on my shelf. That's not going to happen. When you do research, you have to disseminate it and you have to publish it. The plan to disseminate and to publish must be in your protocol and your proposal. Now, the main issue to address here is how will this finding be communicated? And to who will you communicate it? Will you communicate the findings? You should include dissemination to participants or communities and policymakers as applicable. You're not expected to just do research and that's all. Just do research and just put it in one. I'm talking about research for development too, not research for promotion in the university. Those ones, as far as they're concerned, anything you write, you put it in one parameter journal, it counts for you, right? But not in this sense. So how you disseminate, where you publish it, who and who will hear about it, and how you get the knowledge to them that's been funded based on your proposal. Now, findings can be disseminated through several media, internal seminars, regular reporting to stakeholders, publications, for example, journal articles, reviews or book chapters. You have to indicate them there, where you're going to disseminate, conference presentations, exhibitions, outreaches, and public engagement events. So you have to make this clear in the proposal, how you're going to disseminate the knowledge that you have created through the research. Okay? Different people that are funding research, they have their audience, they have different audience that they're trying to support. So you have to be clear that you're not that you put that section there in terms of who will use it. Okay? And I get them. Now I'm on ethical considerations now. Okay. Based on the principle of autonomy, beneficence, that's doing good, and null maleficence, avoiding harm and justice. Ethical considerations are based on the principles of individuals have autonomy. They have autonomy to decide whether they want to participate or not. So you can't force people to participate in your research, to answer questions in your research. People must be free to make that choice. That's number one. Number two, benefit of the research, right? If you go to communities all the time, collecting data, there is no benefit. At some point, they will stop listening to you. Okay, so how would they benefit? How would the research do good to your respondents? Number three, how your research procedures will not constitute any harm, right? Any harm to your respondents. For instance, if you're going to do a study and you need to interview pregnant women or mothers, sorry, not pregnant, mothers. So in your ethical consideration, how will you take care of the children? When you want to interview them, how do you want to handle the children? All right. Now, if you want to interview only women, how will you handle the men, their husbands? Because you don't want the answers to be influenced by the presence of their husbands. How will you handle their husbands? Right? So that because there are cultures in which the South and the North are different. So if you want to do some studies in the North, so there'll be clear questions in terms of if you want to interview young people, adolescents, right? Adolescents with children, people, women age 15 to 19 that already have kids, or 13 to 19 that already have kids. So some of them are children on their own. So who is going to answer your questions and how will they do it? How will you handle the children? that are around them? How you handle their husband so that they do not interfere with the authenticity of the responses that you're getting. So you have to address all that, right, in the ethical considerations. Now, things to consider. Ethical approval for the study. You have to find local approval, institutional, sometimes national ethics committee. So sometimes they are done locally, sometimes it's an institution that does it, sometimes it's a national ethics committee that does it. Now you have to also make sure that there is informed consent. You have to get the consent of people before you speak to them, before you interview them. If they don't give you a consent, you cannot get them involved in the process. So the process, your procedure, you have to write it clearly and you have to implement it. The other issues that may be of ethical concern, especially when the study involves human subjects, I've mentioned some of them. You have to be very clear about how you are going to handle all those things ethically, appropriately, and in such a way that they do not interfere, they do not contaminate the responses coming from your subjects. Now, information to provide to subjects and how you provide them, extent of participation and alternatives of participation, incentives to be provided to subjects. If you are providing incentives, you have to declare it. If you are incentivizing people to participate in the study, you have to declare it. If you are providing treatment to subjects, you have to declare it, everything. And then you have to be very clear on how you keep the information confidential. All right. Another thing you need to indicate in the protocol or in the proposal is the timeline. You have to specify the duration of the project. You have to provide a Gantt chart, like a Gantt chart. They call it Gantt, G-A-N-T-T, Gantt chart that indicates the timing of each of the activities over time. You list the activities in a column. That is in a column, in one column, all the activities you are going to do to implement the methodology. You have to list all of them. Okay? Now, the activities you have there, they are a translation of your methodology into something different from just writing methodology. So you list all of them. Then the timeline, when you expect each of them to occur, there are some things that can occur simultaneously. Some things cannot occur simultaneously. So your timeline, everything should be very clear in terms of when certain things will happen. Now, you have to consider preparatory stage training of research workers, equipment procurement, pilot studies, data collection, data analysis, report writing. You have to consider all that in your timeline. Okay. Now, in the research also, you have to indicate the challenges you anticipate, all the potential obstacles or difficulties that can prevent the realization of the project within stipulated timeline and budget, and explain how you overcome them. Okay? You have to indicate all that as well. Now, let's come to the budget. As I said, your budget and your methodology are very, very related, clearly related. If anybody wants to understand your methodology, you can look at the budget. If anybody wants to understand the budget, why you want to do all this, he has to go and look at the methodology. Those two must speak to themselves. If there are elements in your budget that are not in your methodology, they will flag it and tell you that these are strange items in your budget. These are not, we can't see this in your methodology. Or there are some aspects of the methodology that you omitted in your budget. It's very clear. Anybody who reads it will know that you didn't that you are not going to implement those aspects of methodology because your budget has nothing about them. So your budget it's like a translation of your methodology, right? And saying how much will I need to implement each of these steps of methodology? So, itemize and justify the budget. For long-term projects, provide detailed budget for at least first year and then outline for subsequent years. Detail for the first year. Then for the subsequent years, since you are providing details for the first year, you can just have outlines and the sum for the subsequent years. It must also be a realistic budget. Too much or too little may lead to unsuccessful fund application or project collapse. If it's too little, the project may collapse. If it's too much, you may be denied the project because it's too much money you're asking for. Now, types of expenses to be included are personnel, equipment and supplies, patient care and costs, travel, data processing, communications, secretarial expenses, publications, and submission of research findings, travels, logistics, all of them. Okay, they all have to be in it. Okay, generally, when you put people in field work, you have to pay them a fee. You have to pay them. So the fee is the fact that you are hiring their labor. That's the fee. Okay, I'm hiring your labor. I'm paying you a fee. But then you want to put them on the field. So they have to travel on the field. You are taking them out of their house. They have to eat on the field. Then they have to be making calls. They have to do communication on the field. In addition to the fee, you have paid them for their labor, for engaging their labor, right? You have to pay them transportation, lunch, right? And some allowance for communications. One thing I've seen in this country is that people don't give good regard to field workers. Even our national, all these agencies that are doing data collection, they think as if these people that go to the field to collect data, they're not supposed to be paid. And a lot of times they don't pay them well, they don't give them much money. And what people end up doing is to go and sit down under a tree somewhere and be filling the forms. Because the one they gave them can't carry them through the process. They just go there to fill it, to fill the forms. Some time ago, a friend asked me to come and join her in a survey they were doing at the institution. So we spent time together on the budget, on the methodology, went through it, went through the questionnaires, went through everything. So at the time of going to the field, we actually did the pre-test, went to the field to go and test the questionnaires. We've done all that. We did all that. Now, time to go and do the survey. When they told us how much they will pay us for field work, I just packed my bag and left the place. I cannot take that. I can't take that kind of money. Any money you pay me that wouldn't make me to do the job where I won't take it. Right? But there are some people that to them, that's their means of livelihood. That's a lot of money to them. But eventually, by the time the money gets dried up, they will go and sit down in their rooms and fill the forms and fill in the forms. That's why a lot of people don't trust the data we produce around here. Because the people that do the field work are not well paid. We're not asking them to pay them too much, but make sure that apart from their fees, you guys, we are sending them on the field, you give them logistics, travel, communication, and lunch. You give them the provision because you don't send them out. Okay. So you have to note that when you're doing your budget, you have to make due considerations for all these items. Now, references. All sources of information must be cited, and you must avoid plagiarism. Okay. Reference style must be uniform. You can't do APA somewhere, and you can't do another Harvard elsewhere, and so on and so forth. You can't. Formatting should be consistent. You have to cite relevant and current literatures. All cited authors in the text should be in the reference list. All listed references must have been cited in the text. References should be cited and listed sequentially. Okay. Then, research team. You have a proposal. Your team that's going to do the research. You have to describe the role of each person and responsibility of each member of the team. You have to include information on previous studies or preliminary work done on the research problem by the investigators. What they have done before in that area, you have to write them there. Then you have to attach the CV of the investigators to show the competence of the investigators to conduct the research. Okay. Then annexes. Okay. The annex to the proposal. You might include interview protocols, right? Sample of informed consent forms, cover letters sent to appropriate stakeholders, official letters for permission to conduct the research, study instrument, permission to reproduce, instrument or proof of purchase of instrument, other support for the project, collaboration with other scientists or research institutions, link to other projects, financing and insurance, right? General considerations. Number one, include a table of content in your proposal or protocol. If you don't include the table of content, you are not. That is not complete because you have to produce a table of content that shows the reader this is how my proposal is structured. This is the content used that you find in there. Can you see the screen now? Include a list of the acronyms, abbreviations
Yes.
in alphabetical order. Okay, thank you. A list of acronyms or abbreviations in alphabetical order. If you use technical terms, please explain them. Number 4, I cannot say this I cannot overemphasize this, that you must be logical in flow of thoughts. You must be, in your presentation, you must be logical in the flow of thoughts. And you must use appropriate section headings. The logic is important. Readers can get frustrated. There are some things you read. Let me tell you. You can sit down and consume a 30-page article, 30-page document. You just because it's so logically arranged. 30 pages. So logical that you are just being motivated to continue and continue and continue. And 30 pages before you finish it, before you know you are done reading it. But there are some documents that are 10 pages, but you just don't like it because they are not properly organized. The flow is not logical. Things are not flowing to themselves. Arguments are flowing. This one and the next one, they are not connected. I can't see. There's no sequence. There's no sequencing in it. Those are very bad writings. Very bad writings. One of the ways of writing very well is to be able to know how to connect past paragraphs, how to connect paragraphs, how to make sure that they're properly ordered. If you read it by yourself, you will see that there's something is missing. There's a gap here. There's a break here. You don't break the mind of the reader. The mind is very fragile, right? When somebody puts his mind into a document and is reading it, if there's a cut off somewhere, the mind will tell you, what's going on? I can't move forward. What I'm reading now doesn't even. No. I can't. No, this is a headache for me. I can't interpret this anymore. Right? That's frustration. So be logical in flow of thoughts. Very logical. Don't jump. Don't assume too much. Don't assume the reader knows what you're talking about. You are the one explaining to the reader. You are the one communicating to the reader. Communicate clearly, logically. Keep tense and voice consistent. Present versus past tense. Active versus passive voice. Okay? Keep sentences short. Use paragraphs appropriately. Avoid repetitions. That kills a lot of. In our own area here, avoid repetitions. I would say that the way we write here, avoid repetitions. But the way they write in the Middle East, you must be repeating what you're saying. They like repetitions in the Middle East, but here we don't like repetitions. Avoid repetitions. It will damage the writing, damage your proposal. Okay. Be consistent in formatting, font size, font style. Make effective use of tables, figures, and charts. Make your proposal stand out. Okay? Your research proposal make it stand out. Points to note. When you're applying for funding, apply to funders whose program goals are related to the project, understand and follow the guidelines or instructions of the funders. Nigerians are very bad at following instructions. We put out sometimes internship opportunity and you ask people, you give them a guide, you give them a template to use in submitting their answers. Some people will not follow it. I don't know what they think. They think that are too big. Nigerians, a lot of Nigerians, they feel they're exceptional. They feel they're different. And there are many ways in which religion has ruined us a little bit, has ruined us in some ways. Some people feel that they don't have to do what everybody is doing. They are special. They have grace. Grace will speak for them and so on and so forth. All that nonsense. The instructions to obey. You obey the instructions. And so guidelines say this is how you should do it. In fact, anytime we ask people to apply for things, the first thing is to weed out a lot of people that will not follow the instructions. We don't need them. They might be good. But you can be good, but you don't follow instructions. Like you can be useful to us, right? You just follow instructions clearly. If you don't follow instructions, you're out. Now, let me qualify that. If you follow the instructions, but it happens that the timeline you are supposed to submit by 12 o'clock, you cannot submit by 12 o'clock. You're supposed to submit on Monday, but you couldn't meet Monday, and you submitted Tuesday, but you follow the instructions, you stand a better chance. You stand a better chance for missing the deadline but still submitting than somebody who submitted on time and refused to follow instruction. I can tell you that clearly. Okay? Know the method of application, submission, timeline, and budget limits. Provide sufficient description of the project and follow guidelines and instructions for the style and how you do your proposal, your formatting, everything. If you don't follow how they want you to organize it, they will throw it away. If you do it to me, I will throw it away. Regardless of who you are, regardless of what your grade is, regardless of how fantastic you sound. I don't want to read that. People that don't follow instructions, they are not even good to be kept around. Show enthusiasm and show commitment. Okay? I have just 3 slides more. Proposal review criteria. Okay. Funding for research is competitive and is determined by researchers' qualification, experience, and research goals. The following questions are usually in order to be considered. Is the question important? Is the study relevant to the interest of those who are funding it? The quality of research design, is it of high quality? Can you see it's of high quality? Investigators, are they competent enough to conduct the research? The research facility, are they capable of the faculty? Sorry, I said faculty. Are they capable of conducting the research? You have to ask all those questions. Then, second to the last slide here, the questions. Okay, continuation. Can the institution manage the research administratively and financially? All the ethical issues have been considered. Budget, is it realistic and justifiable? Is it within limits of the funders? Timeline, is it reasonable? Anticipation and good plan to manage potential problems. Have you included it? Is it proposal clearly and well written? Then in submitting, some people may accept proposal by soliciting. Some organizations accept, they solicit proposals from institutions. They say, hey, because they've known you, send us a proposal on this. They just circulate to a select group of institutions. They send us a proposal on this. Yeah. Sometimes they advertise broadly, inviting proposal submissions in some areas of interest. Some people have opened up policy for submission of any group proposal, but it's not all the big money institutions, they don't do that anymore. That's what we call unsolicited proposal, like opened up policy. Anything, if you have a good idea, send to us. Some people still do it too. In fact, Gates Foundation is asking for very good ideas. You can send to them anytime. But some other agencies, they don't do that. Okay. So this is the last slide. Last slide here. So in terms of research as I said, this is research for development. It's not research mainly for the purpose of I want to get promoted. Right? You don't need all these. Lecturer. You just have to publish in one of the departmental journals. Nobody reads them. People in development don't read them, right? So you don't have to sweat this way. But if it is about research that is focused on addressing development issues, development problem, then welcome to development. Those are research for development. We want to solve problems. We want to solve problems existing. We want to address the challenges we have, address the constraints we have in terms of advancing human welfare, advancing welfare, economic growth and welfare. It takes a lot to do a good research in that area. It takes a lot to write a convincing, successful proposal. And I can tell you that a lot of institutions carry a lot of money, big money. A lot of them don't know what to do with it, with the money. They run out of ideas because they've been doing this for years, in fact, some of them have been doing it for upward of 20 years. They've been doing the same thing over and over and over. They can't see anything new to do again. So they are looking for very, very good ideas. Sometimes they put out some advertisements, but they are waiting for someone that can give them very creative idea, very, very interesting insight and proposal, and they'll fund. They pick it up and fund. Sometimes they put out an advert and then they want this to be done, but they don't have a framework in mind. They don't have a framework. But you have a framework. You just suggest a framework to them. They will receive it quickly. This is it. We found a framework. We can use this framework you can help us organize the thing very well. This is very clear to us. They'll pick it up and call you and say, hey, yeah, you got the contract. You got the funding. They will fund you. We like your approach. The approach you provided. We like approach and methodology. That's what draws a lot of people to your research. Your approach, your methodology are key. And when they see that, and they say that it's fit to your budget, your proposal is perfect. Every other thing is minor. Okay? Every other thing can be addressed. But those two, the approach and methodology and the budget, very, very key. Okay? All right. So I think I'll stop here for comments or questions. Thank you for listening. This is 9:32. Jafar, over to you for moderation.
Okay, thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. As I mentioned from the beginning, you are lucky to have someone like this to be among your instructor, and you see how the presentation how the presentation look at today. Very wonderful presentation with the lot of reference of how Nigeria is and how Nigeria is doing. The president of Nigeria. So once again, it's a lucky opportunity for you to have him as your instructor, and I think this